Hey, what's going on, guys? So, if you can tell by my voice, I am not at my best right now. I am feeling a bit under the weather, so I, if you hear me kind of, wanting to cough a bit, or I'm about to cough right now, but no, I don't have the virus. I just got sick, for reasons I cannot, explain. You feel me? So. I'm gonna make this video as quick as I can, or at least try to get most of it done today and finish off the rest tomorrow because I am feeling a bit tired. I just took some Nyquil and I'm on the verge of being sleepy. So we'll see how this video goes. But welcome to episode number 7 of series recap, and I have to film two more. One for tomorrow, Brooklyn and Milwaukee Game 7, as well as the Hawks Sixers series Game 7. Those two will be separate videos. I was kind of wanting to put them in one video, the Brooklyn Milwaukee series and then the Sixers Hawks series, but I figured they deserve two separate videos because I felt like they were talking about. But as the title suggests, all year long I have been on this team's ass, and I have been on their fans and have, in fact, trolled some of them, mainly because of their choke jobs that they've done in history. The 2015 Clippers Rockets series, and then last year in the bubble with Kawhi and Paul George healthy. They blew a 3-1 lead in that series as well, leading games 5, 6, and 7 by damn near 20 points in two of them. You know what I mean? And now they managed to get the job done. And I gotta say, man, I am officially impressed. And like I said, the title suggests this Clipper team earned my respect. And I feel like, a lot of people should give the Clippers their props. You know what I'm saying? Because, look, bro, how far they came from being down 50 against the Mavs in December and, losing to the Rockets and the Thunder in the last two games in the regular season. A lot of people were taunting them for it. And, I made the Clippers are down bad and terrible. Yep, I did cough there. And no, like I said, I don't have COVID, but that's a different story. I'm just sick. Just have a cold. But, like I said, I made the Clippers are down bad and terrible as soon as they were down 0-2. And I was ready to make another rant about the Clippers about on how horrible they are and how much I thought Kawhi was going to leave. But they shut me up. All right. I made my video 12 days ago titled After this series, the Clippers have earned my respect for now. Keywords for now. Especially winning 3 games on the road in Dallas. I was honestly genuinely impressed, but that was like the bare minimum, and Paul George played passable that series. Here in, excuse me. But here in the series against Utah, Paul George actually played up to standard on how people expected him to play back in 2018 when he gave himself the mantle of playoff P. But he's showed up, but I have to give credit to that dude Terrence Mann, bro. Terrence Mann, of all people, gave the Clippers a lot of life. Now, I know the saying is, look, if the role players beat you, so be it. But not like this. There are some role players that are capable of giving a certain team life when they need it. And that's what Terrence Mann did. And I don't know, bro. A lot of people were not even as high on Terrence Mann. I honestly thought he was going to be one of those guys that will be on a good playoff team. They'll be like a bench warmer or whatever. But as soon as the Clippers had traded Lou Williams, um, Terrence Mann honestly shined in his role. You feel me? Now, obviously, they also traded Lou Williams because they had guys like Reggie Jackson and Morris, and they needed a new voice in the locker room. Where that's why they got Rajon Rondo. But going back to the Clippers, they defied the odds. And as a Laker fan who will always root against the Clippers, I honestly have to say I'm proud of them for defying the odds, shutting every hater up. Win, lose, or draw in this conference finals, I feel like it's time to give the Clippers their respect. And I know it's going to pain some of y'all to do it. Because look, I want to slander the Clippers. Trust me, bro. I really do. Especially since they were down by 25. I was ready to get my pandemic P memes, my LA Clippers cannot make it out of the second round memes. And that was even especially after games 1 and 2 in Utah, where interestingly enough, they only lost by single digits. And then they responded really well at home. And here's the thing about this, bro. I knew the Clippers were going to win game 5 because, look, Utah played lights out basketball in the first and second quarters. But the problem with that is that they were only up single digits in those quarters. And obviously, Diamond looked a bit hobbled and all that, you know what I'm saying? But the Clippers were eventually able to weather the storm in Utah, and they won the game by 8 points. And they blew the game wide open. And I will talk about the Utah Jazz. Hopefully, I have enough energy to talk about them because I'm this close to knocking out, and I might as well film my second part tomorrow. But this Clipper team did an amazing job exposing a lot of holes with this Utah team, right? And I think it's you have to look at both. You have to look at both ways. You know what I'm saying? Because I know some of you guys may ask, well, is this more about the Clippers winning the series or the Jazz blowing it? And I'm addressing one side of the argument of the Clippers winning the series. Shout out to Tyronn Lue. When he was assigned as head coach after Doc Rivers parted ways with the LA Clippers, a lot of people were like, man, is Ty Lue really that much better of a head coach than Doc? Because in the 2016 finals, remember, that was like his only time where, he's actually won something as a head coach. You feel me? I've always thought that that was like more of a testament to the greatness of Kyrie Irving and, of course, LeBron James. One who was still in the playoffs was suffering an ankle injury that might keep him out for the rest of the playoffs if I'm keeping it a buck with y'all. The other one is on the other LA team, and he just got sent home by the Phoenix Suns. Obviously, his team not being healthy, but that's neither here nor there. Tyronn Lue may be one of the most underrated head coaches ever. Because after being down 0-2 and being down 3-2 against Dallas, Tyronn Lue made a lot of adjustments. And that one main adjustment he made was going small. And what did going small do? Well, let's dissect the first round and the second round. So the Mavs in I think games 4, 5, 6, and 7, they decided to go big with Kristaps and Boban, which worked for a good few minutes. And the Clippers were able to shred their defense by going small and by exploiting the slowness of those two big men going small. While the Mavs did do some damage with Boban in the paint, that was not enough for the Mavs to get over the hump. And it's the same thing here. When the Clippers went small, right, they shredded Rudy Gobert. That son of a bitch was an 88 overall at one point. And this dude was Defensive Player of the Year. Yet the Clippers hunted him down and were looking to get the switch on him. Now, I know the Defensive Player of the Excuse me. Yep. I know the Defensive Player of the Year award is a regular season award, but the Clippers were able to shred and pick apart the defense of the Jazz, and they were able to get easy shots at the rim. And some of the shots over Rudy Gobert were pretty tough shots. Like, I think Reggie Jackson had a floater in this game, in game 6, where he had like a floating shot over the outstretched arm of Rudy Gobert. But he was like, nah, bruh, this shit is going in. You feel me? And the thing about it, too, is that they took Rudy out of his comfort zone, too. Because remember, Rudy does most of his defensive damage in the paint. Whenever a guard or even sometimes big guys can get themselves into the paint, Rudy's always there lurking. And unlike Giannis, who was a Defensive Player of the Year last year, Rudy cannot help and switch out on perimeter guys. Why? Because he gets cooked every single time. Remember, Kevin Durant cooked him in that 2017 series against the Warriors. James Harden and Chris Paul cooked him for 2 series in a row. When CP3 and Harden were with the Rockets. And to be fair, Russell Westbrook did cook him too for his 46 points, but the Jazz were able to escape that one because they had every reason to lose that game as well. But the Clippers case was so different because every time the Clippers drove it inside of the paint, it forced Rudy to help off the shooter, and he left said shooter wide open. That said shooter being Terrence Mann. And going back to Mann, dude, bro, I did not know he had a lot of game. And he has a bright future, bro. Like, I've raved about guys like Taylor Horton Tucker and Alex Caruso. Terrence Mann might be just as good as Alex and THT. I don't think he's better than either of them, but he's definitely capable of being on the same level as them. You feel me? And Paul George, man, I have a whole new respect for Paul George now. Because I have been critical of Paul George since his Indiana days, since his last year in Indiana, where he got pissed off at CJ Miles for taking a game-winning shot, and then he choked a winnable game 4 while they were down 3-0, and then scoring a 5-point game against the same Utah Jazz team. That year they had Ricky Rubio and Alec Burks to pair alongside Donovan Mitchell and all those guys, and I'll get what I mean. And he had a pretty good 2019 series against the Blazers, so that loss wasn't on him. It was more on like the inconsistency of the OKC Thunder team. And then obviously last year with the infamous backboard shot, you know, everybody was roasting Paul George, and I was roasting Paul George too. Like I said in my Miami Heat video, I said, give me Tyler Hero over Paul George any day. And that was a mistake. 8 months later, 9 months later even, the roles are now reversed. But seriously though, Paul George stepped up when his team needed him most. And that's something I have not said since the 2016 series against Indiana, where Paul George was absolutely phenomenal that series. I think he averaged like, 27, 28 a game off really good efficiency. The thing is, he had no help from like George Hill and all those guys. But Paul George, I think the hate should stop now. If you still hate Paul George at this point, bro, you're really not a fan of basketball. Like, and this is coming from somebody who has been critical of Paul George and who has always wanted to make fun of playoff P. But the thing is, and I even said it after the first 2 games in the Dallas series, that I wanted to roast him, but the thing is, they were not losing because of him. And Paul George especially stepped up in Game 5 where he had 37, 16, and 5, which Some people were making a joke about Kevin Durant's Game 5 performance against Milwaukee, where he had a historic triple-double by his standards, like 49, 17, and 10. Paul George, I didn't want to say he replicated that effort, but he willed this win. He really did. And he played really well in this game too. So I think the Paul George hate has officially come to a halt. Win, lose, or draw in the conference finals. Because remember, Paul George has not made a conference finals since 2014. So win, lose, or draw, Paul George and the Clippers have earned my respect. And that's especially more so when Kawhi comes back. And I feel like they have jumped from they have really made a jump in the power rankings for next year. And in fact, I may have them as a 2C for my Western Conference predictions next year. But that remains to be seen. Now they have to face the Phoenix Suns, and I do wish them the best of luck. Overall, great game and a great series and a great bounce back by the LA Clippers after falling down 0-2. And they are the first team in history to come back down 0-2 consecutive times. So, props to the LA Clippers. So, let's address the other side of the argument. Now, the Clippers played with a sense of urgency after being down 25. But what about on the Utah Jazz side? Well, I kept watching the highlights. I watched it like 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And I don't know what the hell happened, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, for some reason, it just felt like to me the Jazz got complacent and way too comfortable. After like Jordan Clarkson and Donovan Mitchell were like hitting long bombs from three and were just making shot after shot after shot. Like Jordan Clarkson, started chatting to the fans. Donovan Mitchell was nodding his head and all that. So it feels like to me that the Jazz played with complacency. And the last thing you want to do if you're a team trying to compete for a championship is to play with complacency. Because let's be honest, bro. The Jazz had every single reason to win this game. They played picture-perfect basketball in the first half, which is why they led 72-50. But in the second half, it just felt like they stopped playing. And I don't know why. Some of y'all may argue that the Jazz were not at 100%. They were playing with Mike Conley on one leg, and then Donovan Mitchell had a hurt ankle. But still, that's not an excuse to blow a 25-point lead, especially when you have guys clicking on all cylinders. Bogey had a pretty good series against the LA Clippers, and the biggest thing I took away from the Utah Jazz is that they're doing what the Houston Rockets did back when Mike D'Antoni was coaching the team and when they had James Harden and Chris Paul. If y'all remember Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals, Utah missed 27 consecutive threes, which ended up losing them the game 101-92. So my takeaway from it is that the Utah Jazz are basically doing the same thing. As soon as they shot a lot of threes and someone was shooting follow-away threes like Bogey and Clarkson, and Donovan Mitchell was shooting tough shots too. As soon as they kept on relying on it and relying on it and relying on it, the threes at some point were not dropping. It happened in Game 5 where they shot 17 threes. Some of them were pretty tough shots. But as soon as the second quarter or even the third quarter started, they all of a sudden went cold. And they ended up dying by the three, similar to what Houston did against Golden State in that Game 7. Because no matter how great of a three-point shooting team you are, at some point you're going to have to pound it in the paint. Because that's what the Jazz were doing in the first half. Donovan Mitchell, for his first bucket of the game, immediately put his head down and drove to the rim, which was obviously a good sign if you're Utah, because an aggressive Donovan Mitchell who does not settle makes the Jazz better, right? And there were a few times, and this is what really annoyed me, bro. There were a few times in especially games 5 and 6 where Rudy was calling for the ball. He was wide open. And for some reason, the ball doesn't, you know, they don't pass him the ball. Like I was getting super annoyed where I see Rudy Gobert in the paint calling for the ball, and Mitchell and Clarkson don't even see him, and they isolate and they pass it to another guy on the perimeter instead of feeding it to Gobert. And Rudy has had smaller players on him, and they didn't feed him the ball, especially when he was wide open. Damn, that's just bad basketball right there. And Rudy Gobert's defense was absolutely horrendous. Now look, the Utah Jazz have been one of the best defensive teams all year, and based on the Jazz games I've watched, their main focus on defense is protecting the paint, which is what Rudy Gobert does, while you have three guys shadowing Donovan Mitchell, and Donovan Mitchell can guard the guy in the corner. That is what I have looked at based on the Jazz games I've watched. But the thing about the Clippers, and I think this is more the Clippers' strategy more than Gobert's fault, is that the Clippers took Rudy out of his comfort zone as soon as they had five shooters on the floor. So Rudy may not be fast and athletic to defend the perimeter, but you really can't put the blame on him. A lot of people are pointing at Quinn Snyder for the lack of adjustments because after the first two games, they were like, all right, guys, let's just keep doing the same thing that worked for us in the first two games and let's see if we can win it. You don't want to do that, especially when the coach on the other side is making adjustments to counter your game plan, and you have to have something in your back pocket. We saw that with the Milwaukee Bucks of the last 2 years, where Kawhi and Butler and Jimmy were feasting, and for some reason the coach did not want to put Giannis on him, and for some reason the coach did not want to take Brook Lopez out. And it's the same in the Nets series, even though they forced a game 7. So I'll talk about the Bucks at some point later in the day. But here's the thing about it too. Quinn Snyder, I don't know what the hell he was thinking, leaving Rudy Gobert out there. I was talking to my friends. I watched Sporting Logically, bro. And everyone was shouting, take Rudy off the damn floor. And oh my gosh, I've never seen any team playing against the defensive player of the year and basically look at him as a weak link. Bro let Terrence Mann scored, I think, 6 or 7 threes on him, and he was left wide open. Bro, the funny part about it is that I was watching I was actually watching the full game. Mike Conley was, I think, guarding Jackson. Jackson passes to, it's either Jackson or Beverly. Either, bro. But they pass it to Terrence Mann wide open in the corner. Conley was stunned at him, and he was like, Rudy, what the hell are you doing? So basically, the Clippers took him out of his comfort zone, and when you take Rudy out of his comfort zone, he's basically a weak link in Utah's defense because the Clippers have 5 shooters on the floor, and you're asking Gobert to get outside and defend one of them when his main job is to protect the paint. If he's not protecting the paint, then Rudy is useless. But that basically killed Utah. And like I said, Utah just, I'm assuming because I kept on watching the full game highlights. I watched the full game, and I cannot come up with any conclusion other than the Utah Jazz just basically play not to lose. Oh, man. And this is like a little rant on the Jazz, bro, but I'll conclude it with this. Can the Utah Jazz bounce back from this? Well, I don't know, because remember last year against Denver, they were up 3 games to 1, and I thought this would be the same scenario as OKC in 2018, where okay, OKC won at home and forced the game 6, and same with Denver, they won at home and forced the game 6. But unlike the OKC series, the Jazz lost game 6 and they lost game 7 by a nail biter. All right, and then it's the same thing in the Clippers series too. Like, they blew a 25-point lead. They blew the lead. They blew the game. And they blew the series. So, me personally, based on, like, the teams I watched and me watching basketball for a good, I want to say 7 years, I don't know how a team can truly bounce back from that. I personally don't. And I might say the same about Milwaukee should they lose tonight. I don't know how can you really, truly recover blowing winnable games in a playoff series where you're basically expected to win. Because remember, the Jazz were the favorite to win Game 5, especially without Kawhi Leonard. But for some reason, they shot 17 threes. I mean, they made 17 threes in the first half, but for some reason, they weren't leading by as much as like 20. They were leading by 5, and I was just like, man, this could be trouble. So, based on what I have seen in the past, especially with OKC from the past 3 years since KD left that team, with Russell Westbrook trying to win by himself, and then PG and Melo, and then just PG, blah, blah, blah. Based on what I've seen, I don't know how they can truly recover from this, because this was their golden opportunity. With the Lakers out, with the Clippers banged up, with the Nets banged up, and so on and so forth. This was their chance to win it all. And now they're going to go into next season knowing, look, Steph and Clay are back. LeBron and AD are going to be healthy. Kawhi is going to be back and more than likely better than ever. The Phoenix Suns, if Chris Paul stays, which I believe he will, and I'll make a video about them at some point. The Suns are going to get more pieces to better their roster and all that. I don't know how Utah can really reclaim the first seed based on those circumstances, because Lakers, Clippers, Warriors, and the Suns, maybe the Mavs, those are teams that I think will have a better chance at being at least a top 4 team in the West next year. And Utah may fall down back to earth and be a mid-tier team. Like, remember, the first 2 years with Donovan Mitchell, they were a 5th seed. Their last year with Gordon Hayward, they were a 5th seed as well. So they might as well go back to that, man. Like, I don't know. I don't think they're done for. As long as they resign Conley and he's back and healthy, and as long as their coach makes adjustments, and as long as Rudy's on the team and blah blah blah, I don't think the Jazz are done for. But this is gonna leave a bad taste in their mouth for as long as Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley, stay there. So this will leave a bad taste in their mouth. But yeah, that is my video on the LA Clippers Jazz series. And as the title suggests, the Clippers have officially earned my respect. I mean, I will always root against them, but not to a level that I've roasted them for the past few years, especially last year where they blew a 3-1 lead to Denver. So, good luck to the Clippers. I don't think they'll win against the Suns without Kawhi Leonard. I don't think they'll win against the Nets without Kawhi. So, best of luck to them. Best of luck to Utah, whatever the hell happens in their future. And, yeah. I don't know what else to say to y'all. But, anyways, that's the end of this video. I'm X. Deuces. Yes, I'm still sick, even a day later. I filmed all this shit a day later. But, this is a minor setback for a major comeback. But, oh yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. I didn't mention that in the beginning of the video, which I should start doing again because I've been forgetting that. But until that day comes, now that is the end of this video. I'm X. Deuces.